All right, I think that's the cue to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Value, host of the Talking Threat Intelligence podcast and content marketing strategist here at Liferaft, and I'll be your panel moderator here today. We have just 30 minutes together, but my goal today is to give you the best possible insights on managing your security operations at a sport or entertainment venue, as well as the best practices for protecting players and other VIPs at this event. But I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need lots of questions from you throughout the discussion. So if at any point during our conversation today, something pops into your head, please enter it in. I think it's what's normally where it is with these Zoom chats at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to weave those in through our conversation here today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's event. First, we have Kara Gronberg, Lead Intelligence Analyst at Crisis 24. Kara works with the NFL account and has supported almost 1,500 NFL games, 5 Super Bowls, and 5 NFL drafts. Next is Ben Barentine, Vice President of Executive Services at 360 Privacy. His consultancy offers comprehensive security protection to the NHL, NFL, MLB, Team USA, and Fortune 500 companies across the country. We're also joined by Jessica Ansley. Jessica is the Director of Operations at IPG, where her responsibilities include staffing, managing, and managing multiple executive protection details globally. Next is Steve Alberton, owner of OP Structure, which provides a range of security services for businesses and high net worth individuals. Steve has directed global operations and projects spanning 6 continents, including 3 Olympics, 5 Super Bowls, and numerous other special events. And finally, we're also joined by Anton Kalajan, founder and CEO of Guardian Professional Security. Anton has directed and supervised over 2,000 live concerts, music festivals, and sporting events worldwide, and he has served as head of security and advanced team leader for dozens of multi-platinum and Grammy award-winning artists. So please, virtually, maybe with the applause emojis in the chat box, welcome our 5 amazing panelists this afternoon. All right, so to kick off the discussion, I think the way that I kind of want to organize our conversation today is probably starting with the very high level, looking at things from a venue management and managing a stadium from that security perspective, and then kind of going a little bit more into the more gradual details of protecting athletes and staff and further down there. So I think I'll start off first with Kara, which I know your work involves a lot of, like I said in the introduction, providing threat intelligence for the NFL and using a lot of social media for protecting events and providing a lot of threat intelligence for these things. So I guess I kind of want to kick off with, how has the prevalence of social media and other online platforms changed the landscape for threat detection in the sports and entertainment industry?
So I think that social and online monitoring really has expanded just the general knowledge of what threats exist out there, where, in the past, physical threats may have been more suspicious letters or potentially phone calls. The internet really has opened us up to a significant amount of threats from people that may not have taken the time otherwise, and that security teams may not have been aware of previously. So with that being said, social media monitoring really allows teams to also prepare and better understand their threat landscape. So like, for example, with us, if we're monitoring during a game, and there's a threat of violence against a coach or personnel, we can detect that threat and work with local law enforcement to determine, a course of action to protect that person.
Right. In your years now, and especially I'm curious with working with the NFL, has there been anything that's really surprised you about your job?
I would say the constant volume of information that we're really having to search through on a daily basis. While we do have a technical off season, doesn't necessarily mean that people are not paying attention to the league and to our players and our personnel. So it really is a 365 job.
I think what's kind of surprised me the most working at Liferaft personally is just what people are willing to put online has been pretty surprising from time to time.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you kind of wish that you know now that you kind of wish you knew when you started doing threat intelligence for sports venues?
So I think that, change is really a good thing, and that, continued learning is a must in this field. What we do one day may not work the best the next, and, always taking the time to constantly evolve and learn new techniques and protocols so that you're getting the best results and finding what you're looking for. Just that, adaptability is key for intelligence work.
Gotcha. Taking it more to a management perspective, I'd just be kind of curious to hear from you some of the best practices that you've learned over the years for building an effective social media monitoring program for sports venue and entertainment events.
So we really take the time to kind of understand NFL fans and what they may be saying and where they're saying it, so that we can, best manipulate the platforms to find what we're looking for. So this, can include understanding slang terms or nicknames, other colloquials, to include in our searching, so that we, are invested in the way that an actual fan would talk about something. Always important then, to use those nicknames in your searching as well. I also think for sports specifically, when you're looking at threats, it's important to include things like misspellings of individuals' names or stadium names, particularly when thinking about someone who is posting a threat. They may be angry, and they're definitely not taking the time to properly spell things online. So always keeping that in mind.
I've seen that too with more the loss prevention side, where it'd be a lot of like code words for different retailers that groups might be targeting. So I'd imagine it'd be kind of similar with maybe not necessarily a target all the time as the NFL, but like I said, fans misspelling and things like that.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, like one of the things that you also mentioned in your answer was just the sheer volume of data that's also been coming in, not just during the season, which I can imagine is the busiest time for you, but also off season, which 365 days a week or days a year, someone's paying attention to the NFL. How do you manage the volume of content and kind of separate the vast majority of which is just noise from real intelligence or real threats?
So we, have a specific criteria based on linguistics of what we determine to actually be, a threat versus someone just saying, somebody do this. So taking that into consideration with posts, we curate our searches based upon specific language use, so an intent phrase and a threat term, particularly with a named personnel or asset, that's a league interest. And then also just on our team, we divide responsibilities based on region. So we each have, 8 teams that we're covering, which makes the breakdown, a little bit easier and not having to cover, all 32 at once.
Gotcha. And I'd imagine if you're breaking things down between different leagues, people are going, or between different teams, people are getting more experience at each one of those over time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In terms of, I'd just be curious in also as well with like, what are the most important 10 minutes of research that you're doing every day to kind of keep up to date with your craft and get better at what you're doing every day?
Yeah, so I think really just taking the time to understand the changes on the different social media platforms, to understand, if something isn't going to work that has been, a tried and true technique of yours, and, understanding then how you can change your current protocols so that you can still find what you're looking for.
Gotcha. I know I got to be careful sometimes asking these because people aren't always comfortable talking on the record about it, but do you have any examples of sort of changes that you've seen previously that might be impacting your work now?
Yeah, so typically changes with Twitter privacy laws based on platforms, affects our ability to search. So most recently, things with verification of accounts as well, the blue check marks has also been a big one, with people being able to pay for that now. And, just the sheer ability to understand who is behind an account, since anyone can now pay to get the check mark, is
right.
Very interesting.
The verification thing is not really worth that much anymore when it's up for sale. I want to turn this conversation now over to Jessica, just because I know you're responsible for a lot of staffing over at IPG. And one of the things that kept coming up a lot in my research for preparing for this webinar today was just the struggle that a lot of organizations are having and just finding people to be out at on the field, or staff, the security staff at the entertainment venues, and just keeping people. They might hire them, they might find somebody, and then people are turning over very, very quickly. So I'm just kind of curious to hear from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now as a security leader with regards to staffing and recruitment?
I would have to say a lot of it comes down to the proper credentialing, the proper experience, and the proper training. So without those three things, it does present a very difficult challenge in some places, especially when you're dealing with looking at multiple states, multiple cities, multiple tours and things like that. We're blessed at IPG. We actually have owned and operated the Executive Protection Institute since 2009. So with that, we do get to kind of meet and mingle with several of the people that are up and coming into the industry, and then select them, to work on some of those higher profile venues or concerts or, sports arenas or anything like that. So it's made it nice in that regard, but not everyone has that opportunity. So really focusing on making sure the credentials are, appropriate, and it's the right fit for the actual venue or event that's taking place. You don't want to just throw anybody out there. You want to make sure that you're, tailoring the need of the client to the personnel that you have available.
Gotcha. Have you had, because you're kind of you have a unique competitive advantage there at IPG with the training program, but I'd be curious then too. You also have to. You're still kind of marketing the security profession. It's just kind of one step removed in a way. Have you had any challenges getting people into that program and trained up and graduated? Is that a challenge at all, or?
It is. There's a lot of competition out there these days. There's a lot of different, kind of online only trading programs. And in reality, online trading is great for supplemental and pinpoint accuracy level of learning. But to really kind of get the look and feel and the understanding of the industry, that in-person training really hands down is bar none compared to the rest. It's being able to kind of do those evaluations, go out and participate in those field training environments, and actually, meet and mingle with these people as human beings. That when you're looking at an applicant, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hire someone that I've had the opportunity to train with or I've met in person than just a regular resume off the internet. So having that one-on-one interaction, that face-to-face connection, and being able to train with them is very valuable, I think.
You mentioned the interview process there. And once again, it's a big competitive advantage I know that you have with being able to actually see people in action during the course of their education. I'd imagine it'd be like you kind of know who you're interested in hiring over a couple of months through that process. But are there any kind of red flags that pop up during the process, or they could go?
Yes. Our industry is very unique in that a lot of us that have been around for a while, we all kind of know each other's names. We know who we've worked with and what principles we've protected and what venues we've supported. So when we're asking, for references or past work experience, and if someone were to say, hey, I've worked this client with Anton, I can pick up the phone and I can call Anton and I can verify that. So the verification process amongst all the different represented companies is very valuable as well.
Right. There's not a lot of, it's not easy to be, it's not a big enough field where you can kind of go from one place to another. People are going to kind of figure what you're out very, very quickly. Yes. Are there I think it's been a very competitive market for recruiters and companies to kind of keep employees on and happy in their work. Do you have any strategies for retaining staff and keeping them on side, or has that been something also that you're been struggling with?
Just like everyone else, I think we're probably struggling with that as well. We do have, clients that once they find that, look and feel that they're really happy with, sometimes they do want to take them in-house. We do work with our clients to try to manage and mitigate that. We do remind people that, people aren't just sitting on a shelf and waiting for an opportunity. We are actively trying to get them out and do different things and gain different experiences. So with that, really focusing on kind of our corporate culture and making sure that we're taking care of our team and giving them and providing them those additional opportunities when possible. And then also helping them and investing in their training. Going into those niche markets, getting different valuable experiences, and making them kind of well-rounded, kind of holistic, fundamentally, and specialized into certain degrees. So
that's a really great answer, Jessica. I want to kind of go take this conversation now more into protecting a lot of the athletes or the entertainers that kind of work at a lot of these events. I've known, especially since COVID, fans have been particularly, I don't know what's the best, just unruly is probably the best word to describe it since COVID, to put it modestly. So I kind of want to go more in that direction now for a conversation. And I think the best person to talk to for this would probably be over to Anton. What are some of the unique challenges that have kind of arisen recently when it comes to protecting a lot of your high profile clients at entertainment venues right now?
Well, more recently than ever, and I mentioned this before on another interview, it's been the impact of social media and the exposure to the client. A lot, 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't get access to these clients. Now you can slide into their DMs and you can track where they're at because they're checking in at this hotel, and they took a selfie, and in the background there's just that one tree that looks so unique, and all the locals know where that is. So it's really last few years, the trouble that we've been having to deal with is the fact that they're so accessible. And as you guys know, as everybody knows on this podcast, all the protectors out there know that exposing your location is can be the worst thing possible. It's a lot easier to be two ships in a night crossing through and not being detected. But nowadays, it's not just the artist doing it. You have to understand there's also the backup dancers, the referees, the singers, the stage guys. Everybody's got social these days. So and what these fans do is they follow everybody. They that's why I tell security, if you're ever going to have social, make sure it's private. They'll follow everybody because they just want an inside look on where that client's going to be. Not that client, to us it's a client, that star or that athlete's going to be. So it's not just monitoring your principal's social. You've got everybody to worry about. It takes a village to move this gypsy train around, right? When you're on tour, if you're in state to state, country to country, or if you're all doing games and you're traveling to different arenas, it's a lot of moving parts and it's a lot of people. So you can't really wrangle all of them. It'll be like herding cats. But you do your best to mitigate through it. And this is an issue that we didn't have 20 years ago. And it's just getting more and more. So the accessibility to the clients due to social media, I think, is the biggest change in the last 10 years or so. And it's just going to get worse. So, it's more important than ever for us to be, vigilant and making sure that we monitor as much social as we can, because whether we know it or not, there's young kids out there that are way better than we are at social and way smarter than we are at the internet. And a lot of these guys could be detectives at the age 12. I mean, these guys are amazing at what they do because they're so passionate about their artist, or so passionate about their actor, or that song changed my life. My father died when that song came on. I need to see them. I broke up with my boyfriend. They're so passionate about it that there's nothing that'll stop them to be able to get at least a glimpse, if not be able to touch or meet, maybe selfie or even closer.
Well, I'm just thinking some of these are going to be great OSINT analysts in maybe 5 or 6 years. And I'm also I'm sympathetic a bit to these celebrities because they kind of have the dual channels, or the athletes, especially now. There's so much emphasis on building your brand and building that connection with the audience online. So I guess that's a question that I would have for you right away is, how do you manage that with your clients, making, that balancing that need for privacy, but also allowing them that freedom to build the brand or engage with their fans if they want to?
You got to pick your battles. You can't be the no guy, right? A lot of times these athletes and these artists and these celebs, they have a million yes guys around them, and it's sickening how many people just say yes, because the minute you say no, you're fired in their world. So you don't want to be the no guy, not because you're scared to get fired, just because you got to pick your battles, because when you do speak, then they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, Anton never told me not to do anything. Maybe this is important. But if you tell them every day, don't do this, don't do that, they're going to get sick of you. They're going to, hey, I want to live my life. So it's important to make sure that you pick your battles. I use a lot of analogies when I teach, and one of them is it's similar to, back where I grew up, there's a drawbridge on the Intercoastal, and all the kids in high school used to jump off that drawbridge as a dare on the final day of school. That's like a tradition in South Florida on that one drawbridge. You're not going to stop the kid from doing that. They're going to do that because there's peer pressure, there's all that. But what you can do is you can warn them that look on the other side of that drawbridge, make sure a boat's not coming through before that guy jumps through. So they're still going to jump, but kind of pick your battles. They're still going to do what they're going to do. Artists are going to be artists. Nobody really tells them no in life. So they're going to be a free spirit in their own right. And why not, right? You're one of the biggest high profile people in the world. You're with millions or billions of dollars, and you're used to getting exactly what you want. But I think it's our job to let them do what they want, pick your battles, and try to mitigate as much risk as you can. And the only time I really put my foot down is if it comes to a situation where they're going to go to jail or they're going to get really hurt, or worse, the possibility of death. So that's really the only time I put my foot down. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, when you're in these people's vehicles every day and with their families every day and in their hotels right next door to them every day, they can get sick of you, real quick. So it's important to speak when you're spoken to, pick your battles, but then make sure that when you do pick that battle, it's something that's worth you putting your foot down, because I can name a million times that's happened, and it's really saved the day. So I think that's important to basically, monitor your client as well as you can. Don't hawk them, don't helicopter them. I know that's our job, but on social and all that other, wherever they're moving, they want to be free. Otherwise they'll get sick of you and get rid of you. But do the best you can to mitigate any risk that they walk into. Give them a longer leash, and when it's time to tighten the leash, do that as well. So you got to pick and choose your battles.
Really, really good insights and great takeaways there, Anton. I kind of want to go over to Ben now, because I know your expertise is in a lot more of the kind of digital vulnerabilities that might be lurking, that a lot of people, especially a lot of the clients that you might be working with, might not be thinking about. Can you just give a high-level overview of the type of digital vulnerabilities that you explain to your clients and mitigate on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times our clients are those athletes, a lot of rookies. We start interacting with them, and those rookies and those new to the scene influencers or celebrities, they're almost like a lottery winner, right? One day they went from being very popular in their hometown or on their campus or whatever it may be, but now they're an international superstar. And so kind of to teach them to say, hey, what you say has meaning. I'm sorry, but you're now a new person. When you post things, people, just like what Anton, he said a lot of great things there. There are a lot of people with time and resources that are scrutinizing what you're posting, what's in the background. So the level of trust, right? When these celebrities are growing up and they're meeting new people, there's tons of people that are trying to get them to buy or take or click something or just read this because they're on the up and up, and they do have a brand, right? They're also trying to push their image. And so having a level of trust, right? In our business, we all said we're not selling a service, we're not selling a product, we are selling trust. And so getting them to only trust certain people, have preferred partners, having, when you are posting things, making sure that you've scrubbed it before you've posted, because just like you said, there may be a significant tree in the background. You may have a photo, there may be somebody walking in the background that could ultimately lead to them finding you, right? So 92% of all physical threats last year came from the digital space. There are 500 websites out there that you can just Google someone's name, and you can, for $5, you can find their home address. You start correlating that with the social media. You start correlating that with tweets, photos, little bitty things like that. The support system around you. So again, your EAs, the people working the venues, exactly. It's not just the person. You have to look at it as a very holistic aspect to truly secure the client.
I love the point you made at the beginning of your answer there about talking about these young athletes and entertainers winning the lottery. I can't imagine myself at like 22 years old with $1 million contract, how cocky I would be. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more, if you could tell us a bit more about this, of some of the data that might exist out there in the ether that people might not be aware of, especially your clients that might not be aware of when they give this out, and how that can kind of backfire for a lot of like athletes and entertainers.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's almost, our job is almost like a PR security almost, especially with athletes and entertainers, because I have athletes that will only talk to me via DM on Instagram. It's bizarre, but these kids, it's just a new age and they don't understand the nuances. And so when they are, whether it's their phone or their laptops or what they are tweeting or putting on social media, there's, you know, the metadata in the background, there are geolocation data, the ad data. Our phones are constantly telling the world who we are and what we want, essentially. And so, and again, I tell clients, you know, what's the point of having a smartphone if it doesn't do all the smart things that you want it to do? You know, I'm not going to tell them no all day, because if you do, you're going to have to go find a new job. But building that plan around them, taking their device, turning off some of those settings, some of the privacy, or turning on some of the privacy settings, turning off some of the geolocation settings, so they can still live their life, but do it in a way that's safe, right? Because we still want them to be this, they've earned it. You know, why wouldn't you want to use all the things that's granted to them in their life now? But we want to make sure that they're doing it in a safe way, safe manner.
Well, I don't think you're going to stay employed long if you're telling them to be full tinfoil hat, living in a or anything like that. It's yeah. They'll find another guy really quick that lets them do what.
They'll find one of the yes men, like Anton was telling you about.
Yeah, exactly. So we're coming up near the end of the time. So I just want to put a Q&A warning. We just have one more panelist. I want to speak to Steve next. So, but we are approaching the Q&A section. So everyone that's watching this, just please get your questions ready. If anything pops in your head, we'll be going to the audience shortly. I want to move on to the next part of the discussion, and I'm kind of curious about also protecting our high net worth individuals that might be attending a lot of these events. And Steve, you're the perfect person, I think, to talk to about this. So what are some of the unique challenges that you deal with when you're taking a client at a sporting event, like, you know, maybe the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup Finals, or just any special event, really?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I would say, as a whole, the biggest challenges we deal with on that piece is on the protection side, the guys having to realize that you are not that person and that you don't have the same access as that person. So when you start to go do these sporting events, you know, you see a new person might think, oh, well, I just tag along with them and go. And it doesn't quite work that way. And as you know, there's a huge difference between taking someone to, and Anton knows this, to a typical, or I say typical, but just a one sporting event, going to one game that is not necessarily a high profile game. That's an entire, no pun intended, whole different ball game than going to a playoff game or an NFL game. So there are tiers of difficulty for the protection people and also for the principals themselves. And then, if you want to say, for me, the mother of all is taking athletes, which we've done, and high net worth individuals to somewhere like an Olympics. That's totally different than, so they all have their different challenges. The biggest thing I would say is that is for us is to keep it very granular, and that you're not, don't get stressed. I tell guys, particularly on the individual, on that, we all know the big picture of concentric rings of security and how that works. But in the end, when you're taking these people to these events, is that you just have to do enough of work that you know where you are going. And you're not going to be able to control where they're going within the venues. So, I'll be the first one to tell you, sometimes you lose your principal in these venues. They know this, you know this. There's places they can go that you might not can go. It's just the nature of the beast and the way it is. So that being said, that's the biggest difficulties for most is the access stuff.
Right. I love from some of the social media stuff that you've posted and what we've talked about beforehand of needing to understand at each type of these events what you're going to have access to, what you're not going to have access to, and how that can, and why that might be surprising to a lot of people if you're used to going to a typical NFL game versus the
That's
Super
right.
Bowl, and how it's completely different. Or like you said, the Olympics. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, the biggest, to kind of break them all down, is the biggest issue is, again, is access. And that, for example, an Olympics, and I'll just kind of break it down really as simple as I can. For example, from the Olympics to a Super Bowl game to a sporting event here in Miami, okay? The biggest differences are, if your principal, for example, or the athlete themselves, you might be talking about the closest you can get to that venue is a mile. That's crazy. So you have to then figure out how do you, even your athletes and principals, they might think that you're just going to pull right up to the stadium and let them out, right? And I would say it's just the biggest differences of the amount of hurdles that you have to go through. And of course, a lot of that is depending on, whether the government is involved, because they put the government, and you can ask Anton, they don't always work with us and we don't always work with them. And that can be a very difficult proposition, because, when you're on the security side, the private security side, your access sometimes is no better than anyone else's. And a lot of it is you have to know that prior. So you can't just rely on, hey, I'll just do this and it'll work. It's the sporting events as a whole is experience. It's just having the experience to know that. But yeah, I mean, and then also, access, when you're talking about, ticketing and like, for example, when you got a protection guy going into, let's just say, the Super Bowl, we're not walking in there with a $1,500 or $2,500 ticket. Okay, we're going in there just maybe with the cheapest ticket we can get to get in there. So of course, as you know, that then that causes access issues and so forth. But to break it all down too, you have to realize that you can only, your responsibility, you can't worry about all the concentric rings of security. You got to let the venue deal with that. And then you have to figure out how to navigate those. Yeah, it's a difficult proposition for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask about how do you maintain a discrete client experience, but I guess if you have, like you said, through access issues, it might be discrete by definition.
It is. A lot of it is discrete by definition. But it's, and again, a lot of that depends on, and then Anton knows this, it depends on the clients themselves. Some clients, I mean, in my industry as a whole, most of the principals are, if they're high net worth families or owners of teams and their children, they want very discreet. I mean, it's so discreet. They don't want to see us. We have to be there, but kind of not be seen and so forth. With Anton, it might be completely different. Their actual brand might, they want a guy that's 6'6" and so forth. That makes it even harder for them. So in a way, sometimes the discreetness is an easier proposition for us.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you very much, Steve. That is all the time we have today for our panel discussion. And I'm just looking over at our Q&A. We have one question from one of our attendees. And I'll just open this up to the entire panel, whoever wants to answer first. In terms of international travel, what are the main considerations for ensuring safety and managing potential risks in unfamiliar environments? So I don't. Maybe Steve, you'd be a good person to answer that one.
Yeah, it's you know what, it's just like anything else. The biggest thing is doing your homework. no, don't just say, you know what, I'm just going to book my flight and I'm going to show up and everything's going to work out. You know, some of the easiest international trips turn into some of the most difficult trips. And I'll use my experience, for example, like going to the continent of Africa. That's a whole different challenge than, to be honest, even coming into, let's say, Western Europe and so forth. But as a whole, it's just like anything else, doing your advanced work, doing your due diligence, you know, everything from checking, and to be honest, a lot of it is, I wouldn't say common sense oriented, but it is just doing your homework and knowing what's going on geopolitically. You know, I look at this panel, man, I wish I had everybody on this panel and I had everybody on my payroll, because then I would just call them and say, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? But the reality of it is that most of the teams that are traveling, let's say on the family side or so forth, we don't have access to all these terrific people. We're piecemealing it, trying to figure up. So, you know, you're doing a lot of buddy back scratching. Hey, can you get this for me? Can you help me on this? Other teams that have traveled there and so forth. But to answer the question is just doing your due diligence. You can never have too much information, trying to figure out, particularly on the international travel side, and relying on your local help. I would say internationally, that's one of the biggest mistakes is thinking that you can just come from Seattle, Washington, and you can go into Tanzania, Africa, and think that you're going to get on the ground and the customer is going to be happy. It does not work that way. It's local people that make those trips successful. I can't imagine even going actually hardly anywhere internationally and not having that local help.
Right.
That's the key.
Our next attendee asks, any tips on building long-term relationships and trust with celebrity and high visibility clients? I might turn this one over to Jessica and Anton, because I think this would be in their wheelhouse.
I'm going to defer to Anton first. I think he's got the most personal experience dealing with higher profile celebrities and building those rapport.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, I think the key to this, and to answer this question, you know, quite bluntly and frankly, is you, like I said before, realize that you're not there to be friends with them. Realize that you're there for a job and a job only. I've often been asked, how come you've lasted so long with XYZ? Or it's crazy that this person's fired everybody and you've been here 10 years. It's not that hard. I built a relationship because I stay out of the way as much as I can. I speak when I'm spoken to. I like I mentioned before, I don't say no all the time. And I just keep in mind that these guys are not my friends and I'm not theirs. I have nothing in common with them. I've got a small group of friends I grew up with back home. Those are the guys I have something in common with. Same thing with these people. So in order to build that relationship further, you got to keep these things in mind, but also at the same time, think to yourself, you know, everybody's is a taker for these people. Take. I want this. I need this. I want that. It's all about taking from these people. And they're so used to being things taken from them. In a world of takers, be a giver. You know, be somebody that could be of service to them. You know, if you spend your time realizing that you're not their friends, speak when they're spoken to, work hard, never get comfortable. That's the kiss of death. If I could tattoo it on my forehead, I would. Do not get comfortable. I've seen too many people get fired for that. And then you'll build longevity. And then when people ask me, how come I've lasted so long with XYZ? That's exactly the formula. Work hard, stay out of the way, don't be too friendly with them, and be a giver, be of service to them. And then in a world where everywhere they look 360, everyone's taken from them. If you're that one person that's really got their backs, they see that. And it's not a world where everybody on this panel has lots of people that have their backs, family, friends, people in their church, whatever. This is a world where no one's got their backs. Everyone's taking. So be the opposite, be a giver, and that's how you build long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Really love that, Anton. Jessica, did you, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're good. You're good. I really wanted to hear what Anton had to say there, because, you know, I respect everything that he's done with all the people that he's had the opportunity to work with over the years. So if I could add anything, it would be, you know, coming from that customer service mindset. You know, it's the soft skills that are going to build that rapport with the customer. Your protectees, like Anton said, are just used to everybody take. So when you're able, as their protector, to provide kind of those customer service level skills and, build that respect and rapport with them and earn their trust, that's why you stay. But it's never, you're not living their lifestyle. You are not them. You are there to be of servitude to them, but not their servants.
Great answer, Jessica. And one last question. I think we got time for one more. How do you balance creating a safe environment at sport venues while creating a fun environment for the fans?
I can jump in there. So
All
I
right,
think,
Claire.
we put a lot of effort into the pre-work for games as well. So, anticipating any possible incident that might happen and, forging good relationships at the stadium and with law enforcement that support the venues so that if an incident were to occur, it pretty is, the reaction is seamless. And, there's that pre-preparation to know, who does what, when, so that the fans don't, feel that impact.
Gotcha. Great answer, Kara. All right. I think we are running up just about out of time. We're coming like right up into the red zone of on my time limit here. I just want to take a moment to thank my team here at Liferaft for organizing this event today and giving me the opportunity to moderate, especially Victoria Law, who's been running everything really well behind the scenes. And also shout out to Beverly and Anne-Marie for helping to organize this event. And of course, got to thank especially all my panelists for taking the time here to chat with me today and share insights with everyone that attended. Thank you very much. And also, before everyone leaves, I'd just like to ask our attendees here today to answer a quick survey. I think there'll be a link sent out after this presentation. And this will just give us a little bit of feedback on the event this afternoon and give us a better idea on how we can perhaps organize these things a little better next time. Anyway, that's it for now, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.